I'm Stephen Owens, Managing Director, Pubs and Restaurants at Christie Co, and I'm delighted today to be joined by Mark Robson, who's Chair of the British Institute of Innkeeping, the BII, and also Managing Director at New Dawn Pubs. Welcome, Mark. Good to see you again.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for joining us. Before we start, Mark, I just wondered if you could perhaps just give us a bit of insight into your role at the BII and also how you found yourself in the pub sector, which looks from sort of your brief biography to be quite an interesting journey.
So I am chair. The BII is a charity. We have a number of trustees, as you're aware, and my role is to sort of organise and coordinate the trustees, and I suppose to help and guide the executive team. You know, we're a small team at the BII, but some very talented and driven individuals who are really committed to supporting the pub sector. And I'm an operator, and so I suppose one of my key roles is to provide feedback on what's happening on the front line, what's happening in the pubs, where our challenges are, where our opportunities are, and bring that insight and knowledge to the organisation, as well as coordinating the trustees and our board meetings and inputting into the sort of overall strategy of the team and the organisation. And in terms of the pub trade, I mean, for me, it was one of those things I just had an itch when I was younger that I needed to scratch. I'm about 22, 23 years in the trade now, and started with a small Tide pub and sort of built up a small estate of mainly freehold pubs. And then in 2020, during COVID 2021, we took a private equity investment with a view to sort of building up the business even further, but it didn't work. We had some fundamental differences with the investors that we had, so we exited and started again with a small collection of pubs. And today our business is called New Dawn Pubs. We have three pubs in Surrey and Hampshire, and we're sort of plodding on and facing the challenges that the industry has right now. But I enjoy it, and actually having spent a long time building up a business, I'm really enjoying being much closer to it with a smaller number of pubs, being a lot more focused, and actually just sort of feeling the heartbeat of the business a bit more than perhaps I did when we were a bit bigger.
In our Business Outlook publication, we sort of look on some of the key trends last year and some of the challenges looking forward. Yeah, I'd just be interested, Mark, just to get your view on, looking back probably on last year, what you saw the key trends being throughout the year and how you sort of faced some of those challenges, I guess.
We've been on a bit of a roller coaster, haven't we, in the pub industry, really, since we came out of COVID, and then we hit the energy crisis, and then cost of living, and we seem to go from one sort of drama to another. So very often that snatches the headlines as what we're doing as an industry, or what's keeping us awake at night. But when you're back on the shop floor, it's quite an interesting place to be at the moment. And I think for us, we definitely, and I think this is echoed talking to lots of other operators, we definitely, people still want to go to the pub. They're still enjoying the pub as much as they ever did. It's more expensive now than it was a few years ago. Prices have definitely pushed north in the last couple of years. So I think the weekend, that Friday, Saturday, Sunday visit is still there for consumers, and they're still enjoying it as much as they ever did for a bite to eat with the family, or a pint with your mate, or whatever. But I think midweek it's become quite a lot more challenging, and you've really got to give people a reason to come out. And I think that's what we've seen a lot of. And I think that ties in with consumer behaviour, just sort of evolving, and people enjoying more experience-led opportunities, and and perhaps not just wanting to go out for a pint on a Tuesday night, but if there's a supply master class, or a live music, or a quiz night, or a competition, or whatever it is, people opting to be drawn out of the house to visit for those sort of occasions. And we've seen a lot of that. And in the last, year, 18 months, we put a lot of planning into making sure that, without saturating it and having things go on too frequently, that we've always got something to talk about. We've always got something to entice people and to excite people and give them a reason to come out. So I think that's been an interesting trend. And I think the other thing, and it continues to amaze me, is the development of the low and no category, and how much that every year just gets stronger and stronger and stronger. And there's more innovation. We have so many more products available to us now, rather than just, a beer or a couple of beers or whatever. We've got a fantastic portfolio of flavored gins and vodkas now, which are flavored spirits, I should say, which are, really come a long way in the last couple of years. And the quality behind them is really fantastic. And so it's making sure we exploit that as much as possible. In the last year now, across all of our pubs, we have it on draft. We have we have Lucky Saint on draft, which has been a real revelation and has gone down, incredibly well. And actually, the breadth of the product offering that we have in that category now is phenomenal. And the uptake is huge. We sell, our highest selling bottled beer 2.5 times over is a non-alcoholic one across all of our pubs, which is amazing, really, when you think about it. We sell 2.5 times more of a 0% beer than we do any other alcoholic product that we stock, in a can or a bottle, which is quite extraordinary.
I mean, just picking up on your point of sentiment about people wanting to go out and socialize and use hospitality, we've sort of seen that in a slightly different way from the transactional market, where, we saw more pubs last year than we have for the last couple of years. So the sentiment in terms of buyers wanting to come into the sector still remains strong. And something like just shy of 90% of the pubs we sold remained as pubs, which I view as really positive, because I guess sometimes, people pick up the paper, read the press, look at a lot of the negative sentiment, particularly around, the autumn budget last year, which wasn't great for hospitality, it wasn't great for pubs, but it doesn't seem to have dampened, I guess, consumer confidence in the sector, or the consumers wanting to use pubs and hospitality premises, and likewise buyers as well. Just touching upon those costs, Mark, which is an issue, particularly I guess around national minimum wage, national living wage, and national insurance. What are you having to do? What your members having to do to sort of counteract some of those negative cost pressures?
As you said, it really was a disappointing and quite disastrous fiscal event. And I think what's disappointed most people that I've spoken to in our trade, is that actually, the government ran a manifesto that was pro-growth, pro-business, and actually they've then got into power with a huge majority, let's be honest. And they've really, their actions are so anti-business and anti-growth, right the way across the board, and I find that quite staggering. And unfortunately, there's going to be some fallout on the back of it, because I don't think, I think a lot of it is unintended consequences, but it's going to have a pretty big shock in the sector. Countless operators I've spoken to have reduced opening hours. How many pubs do you know now that don't open on a Sunday night or a Monday or a Tuesday? I mean, they are so so frequently seen. And reducing hours is not good, because that it's reduction in employment, it's reduction in revenue, it's a reduction therefore in the tax take. So that's not pro growth. I've seen, and this is including my own business, I've seen operators laying people off, making people redundant, really looking at their businesses and saying, look, we've got to justify every penny that we spend. Every cost we've got in this business, we've got to scrutinise, and sometimes that means trimming back and and taking out some of the positions that are not business critical. Like I say, we've done that with two roles, and we're pretty small as and of course, when people are looking at what they need in terms of recruitment going forward, they're going to make very different decisions to the ones that they did before the news in the budget. It's going to have a really big shock. My business is, we're small. We turn over £4.5 million. We're not a big business, but the additional cost to us in the three changes being the national employers' national insurance, both the reduction in the threshold and the increase in the rate, the increase in the minimum wage, and the reduction in the business rate relief. It's going to cost our business £240,000, which is loopy. That's absolutely close. 5% of our revenue, or over 5, probably 6% of our revenue. It's not proportionate to other industries and to the size of the business. And I really do worry for the sector. I'm in the slightly fortunate position that we own 2 freehold pubs and a free of tie lease. So we probably make a little bit more margin than some of my other, industry colleagues. And, I think if I was running a tied pub, or on an agreement where there perhaps wasn't that level of profitability, would really be questioning whether I want to continue, which is a very sad state of affairs. And it's important that we make sure the government realise this.
And in terms of sort of the ability to pass on some of the cost through prices to customers, Mark, is that, we've seen quite a lot of operators taking price over the last couple of years whilst we've had sort of inflation, and I guess consumers have got used to seeing rising prices. But to a degree, we've seen the inflationary pressures ease a little bit. We've seen interest rates beginning to come down. Is that ability still there, or do you think that sort of the consumers, a little bit more sensitive now to price increases than they might have been over the last couple of years?
I think there's a couple of points here. I think, look, firstly, on the inflationary pressures, the last set of results starting to tick back up. My personal view is that inflation will increase this year, and as a result, at some point, business interest rates are probably going to have to, certainly stall or stay where they are, if not rise. So I think we are, the country is not growing; we're stagnating, and that's a terrible position to be in. In terms of pricing, there is absolutely no doubt everybody in our sector is going to move their prices this year. In fact, most people have probably already done it. We certainly have. And it isn't a position that people want to take, because we already feel we're so heavily taxed in the sector, we're so overtaxed that we're already charging prices that, quite frankly, are a little bit eye-watering in places. But we have to make more margin to be able to cover these costs. I've said this many times before, I'm a big supporter of minimum wage, and I think it's a really good policy to have. You've got to raise it sustainably. And this increase now that goes ahead in April, will take it to a 50% increase in 5 years. Well, no one's put the prices up 50% in 5 years, are they? And that isn't sustainable. And any industry like hospitality that's dominated by people is gonna really feel the pinch. And so you have no choice but to increase prices. And I think actually 6 months ago there wasn't much awareness from consumers about the pressures the industry is facing. I think there's been so much media attention following the budget on the Chancellor and on the policies she's put forward. I think that's been good for us in terms of customers being more aware of the challenges the sector is facing, and a lot of politicians, my own MP included, have taken up the gauntlet for us and are really championing the cause of pubs, the good they do in communities, and trying to make the government see sense of it. But yes, in answer to your question, undoubtedly prices are going up, and they're going to have to go up, and we're going to have to just get used to everything being a bit more expensive.
I think the really positive thing, which I think collectively we've done as a sector, is say to government, look, hospitality and pubs can be a huge engine for growth, and by discouraging investment, it's sort of holding that potential. And I just wonder to what degree, Mark, you sense that government has sort of heard that and are sort of working with the sector to try use hospitality effectively to try get some growth back into the economy.
one of the great things about our sector is that it's full of a lot of talented, driven individuals, and it's very entrepreneurial. And people can see from a relatively young age, they can see a path to actually being really successful in the industry. As you know, there's relatively low barriers to entry into the pub trade, and that really dangles a sort of entrepreneurial carrot out there. But unfortunately, the way the government is changing, taxation in the sector, they're not driving that entrepreneurial spirit. They're dampening it, and that's really worrying, because you make changes to the cost of employing people, to inheritance tax, to capital gains tax, and that does nothing but just puts a wet rag over a fire that you're trying to ignite. And we can be, and we've done it before, we've proven it, we can be a really high growth, high employment sector that really helps to take the UK economy forward. And at the moment, we're not doing that. We're stagnating because the government is more concerned with trying to load cost onto business than it is in terms of trying to get that fire going a little bit quicker. And I wish they'd adopt a different approach on it, because I think they get a much better result.
Some of the innovation and stuff which has come out of the sector is quite interesting as well. So I think by using technology, operators are looking to mitigate some of the cost pressures. Yeah, I just wonder what, in terms of sort of innovation and technology, you might have used within your businesses, or what you see your members use, to try sort of keep ahead of new trends, but equally to sort of try help with the cost issues as well.
Yeah, I think this isn't new for the sector. I think in the last 10 or 15 years, I think there's been a huge adoption of technology. I remember when I sort of came into the trade, we had very, very little technology, and now we have a whole tech stack, and they all talk to each other, they all integrate with each other, and you can't be without them. And what do? They drive efficiency, they make us more productive, they give us more insight. And they help us run our businesses in the most proficient way that we can. And that will only continue. We'll continue to adopt things that make our businesses better. Just look at labour management. Labour management 10 years ago, most operators did it on a spreadsheet, an Excel spreadsheet, banging out, putting in people's hourly costs and salaries and that sort of stuff, full of errors. It's really, really sort of fragile bit of scheduling management. But now the tools available, I mean, there's so many of them, and they're brilliant. They're really, really effective, and they give you, minute by minute, hour by hour insights into what your business, what your revenue is per hour, per labour cost, and it's really, really good, and that will only continue.
Just some of the booking and ordering apps have moved on massively, haven't they? I guess that was accelerated by COVID, wasn't it? Yeah. And the ability to track. Yeah, I mean, I booked a restaurant last week, and you got several reminders in the days leading up to the booking to, I guess, try and counter no-shows and the like. So technology has massively moved on, which I think is beneficial for everybody. The crystal ball gazing, Mark, looking into the future and the sort of year ahead. I mean, it's difficult. It's sort of difficult sometimes to see the positives, but I think the days are getting lighter. There seems to be more people out there socialising and using hospitality premises. There seems to be a little bit more optimism around. I just wonder, what your thoughts are on the year ahead.
If we're looking at positives, and you look at the like-for-like sales growth is really positive. But then we've put prices up quite significantly in the last year or so that is to be expected. But what that says is people still want to go to the pub. They still want to go to the pub with their friends, their family, their wife, their partner, whatever it is. They want to go and enjoy the British pub. That's fundamental, and that's fantastic. In terms of being positive, I think top line sales will continue to develop and grow, and people will hopefully continue to have great experiences. I do think, and I read your Outlook report over the last couple of days, and I see that the sentiment is largely pretty negative in the industry. The sales element is positive. Profitability is not where it was, and I think that's worrying for people. And we can't really see where that's going to change unless government, does a sort of U-turn on their policy and tries to actually drive growth rather than keep adding cost, I'm not sure how much more positivity we're going to get. It has stifled investment, and people are a bit muted, and they are sitting on their hands a little bit. I mean, we certainly are. We were looking at another pub, and we've pulled that. We've decided not to do it. We're just gonna stay as we are. But I suppose, and another positive I would add into that is that, and again, this is probably a fallout of the general economic conditions at the moment. But I've never seen employment so full in our sector. In the last sort of 6-9 months or so, we're fully staffed. I don't think I've said those words for a long time. And actually, we've got people knocking at the door saying, have you got any vacancies? And we're saying, actually, we don't. And I think that's echoed by by a lot of our members as well. I think obviously there are regional geographical differences, but I think generally that the pressure that we've been under really for 5 or 6 years with struggling to find and retain people, I think has really, really eased.
Yeah, there's been recruitment challenges across a lot of sectors, in hospitality in particular. Yeah, I think if that impacts on the ability to provide a good service, it sort of just discourages people to use pubs, restaurants, and hospitality premises. And yeah, some of the experiences, certainly which I've had over the last few months have been really positive, and I think that's been helped by the ability for operators such as yourself and your members to have a full complement of people there who are engaged and want to work in the sector. And that's one of the key things here from my perspective. I've worked in the pub sector for 40 odd years. My grandparents ran pubs, so it's sort of in the blood, really. So I'm passionate about selling the opportunities within the sector. And the point you made as well, that you could join as a pot washer and end up as chief exec. It's one of the few sectors and industries where genuinely there are no barriers to people progressing.
Oh God, there's so many countless stories of that exact example. Either people going from sort of bar to boardroom, or pot wash to publican, and running their own businesses, scaling their own businesses. I mean, it really, and we are a sector where if you're prepared to really work hard, knuckle down, with a little bit of luck and a few risks, you can really do well, or certainly you could do well. And I want those those opportunities to come back, because that's part of what makes our sector so brilliant. And the last thing we want is people not wanting to come and get involved in pubs, because it either doesn't give you a good enough return, or the opportunity isn't strong enough. And we don't want that, do we? Like you, I'm really passionate about pubs. It's my life. And when I'm not working, I'm in a pub somewhere. And I always want to be. I love enjoying different pub environments, different parts of the country, getting around and seeing different members and seeing how people do it. And we've got to keep them going. They're so important for our country. Pubs are so special and so unique. It's so important the government listens to us and actually makes changes to the policy that they're planning on implementing in April.
Yeah, I think everybody recognises the huge potential of hospitality to drive the economy, and I think the more we articulate that to the government, hopefully the more they'll listen, the more they'll help us. But like you, we're doing everything I can to keep the pub going outside of my professional work as well. So I think the more times we visit the pub and restaurants will help. So that's good. Well, many thanks for your time, Mark. That's been a real pleasure talking to you today. And hopefully the rest of the year brings some positive trading for all of us. Thank you.
Yes, let's hope so. And thank you for having me.
Thank you. No pleasure. Thank you.